Hello and welcome. Today we'll be discussing how to read your Pitzer financial aid letter, step by step. First off, if you're watching this and you have a letter in front of you, that means you were admitted, so congratulations. First, we'll start with an overview explaining the basics of how financial aid works at Pitzer. If you're a domestic student seeking aid, when you first apply to Pitzer, you will submit the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA. This is an application provided by the federal government. You will also submit the CSS profile. This is a separate application that asks some more detailed questions about your family's finances. If you're an international student, defined by Pitzer as a non-US citizen or permanent resident, then instead of the two forms above, you'll fill out the International Student Financial Aid Application, or the ISFA. Your FAFSA and CSS profile data, or your ISFA data, are what help us determine your expected family contribution, or EFC. Now, your EFC is an important piece of the puzzle. Financial aid, if you made it into an equation, looks like this. Cost of attendance, which is an estimate of the total amount it will cost you to attend Pitzer for 1 year, including both direct and indirect costs, which we'll get to later, minus your EFC, which remember is the amount of money that your family is expected to be able to pay towards your Pitzer education. Then we have your financial need. Now that we know your financial need, what do we do? Pitzer meets 100% of financial need. This is done through a combination of grants, loans, and work study. Now that we've done an overview of the basics, let's break down your letter piece by piece, starting with the section at the top, labeled Financial Aid Package. You'll notice that your aid is broken down by semester, starting with the fall. Now let's take a look at what the sources of your aid are, aka where's your aid coming from? The bulk of your package is likely made up of Pitzer grants. Grants are free money that don't need to be paid back. Woohoo, free money! The next source is work study. Work study funding typically comes from the federal government and from Pitzer. If you're an international student, it will come from Pitzer. Think of work study as a pool of money that you earn by working a part-time campus job. This money is paid to you via your bi-weekly paycheck, and you can spend it how you wish. Work study is considered a part of financial aid because students can use money earned through work study to pay for educational expenses, like those direct or indirect costs. The next source of where your financial aid comes from is a federal direct subsidized loan. Let's take a moment to really go into depth on this one, because I know loans can be scary. Every Pitzer financial aid package, for the most part, will come with a loan. We keep these loans small, $3,500 for your first year. Something to note about the loans seen here is that they are subsidized loans. This means that you are not responsible for the interest accrued on the loan while you're in school. It will only begin to accrue interest upon graduation, and this is when you start to pay back your loan. Loans do not need to be paid back until 6 months after you graduate or leave school, and there are lots of payment plans to make that manageable. Loans can also be postponed if you decide to pursue a graduate degree. Additional unsubsidized loans may be available to help families meet the cost of education. You can inquire about those loans with the Pitzer Financial Aid Office. Depending on your financial situation, some of you may notice additional sources in this box. Both the Pell Grant and the Supplemental Opportunity Grant are also free money, this time from the federal government. California residents may also qualify for a state-specific grant called the Cal Grant, which will show up here. If you don't have any of these other grants, don't panic. Pitzer is still meeting 100% of your need. Okay, now we've covered the breakdown of your financial aid package. Let's move on to the next box, which goes into detail about the cost of attendance. Your cost of attendance is broken down into direct and indirect costs. Let's start with those direct costs. Direct costs include costs that are billed to you as a part of your payment to Pitzer. These include tuition, room and board, which is housing and a meal plan, and some smaller fees, which go to pay for things like our Student Senate, which is our student governing body, clubs, and student events. Moving right along to indirect costs. These are costs that you will not be billed for, so you'll never get an invoice from Pitzer that says, books, $600. This is simply an estimate of how much money we think you may spend on items like books, supplies, etc. It's important to keep these costs in mind as you budget for Pitzer. We do not provide an extra stipend for books or transportation. This will be an expense that you are responsible for. Our prediction for your transportation costs, which assumes 2 round-trip tickets per school year, differs based on where you're from. For domestic students, it can range from $100 for SoCal residents to $1,000 for East Coasters. These transportation costs are the only line item that vary on this page. Everything else is the same cost or predicted cost for every student. Let's move into the next section of the letter, which is called estimated payment, or how much you can expect to pay towards your Pitzer education. This section is going to look a lot like the equation we just talked about at the very beginning, but we switch it up just a little. Now we have direct costs minus grants and scholarships received equals your bill. In this example, that little bit of math gives us $8,640. If that number seems a bit intimidating, please note you have options to reduce this cost and lower your overall bill. The first way to do so is by accepting the loan that we talked about earlier, the federal direct subsidized loan. Remember, this loan does not accrue interest while you are enrolled, and you won't need to pay it back until after you graduate. Now you see, with the loan factored in, your overall cost is reduced to $5,140. You don't need to accept this loan if you don't need to or want to, but it can make costs more manageable for your family. Now let's take a quick look at the back of your letter. Here's where you'll find any documents that are still missing, important information regarding your package, and some basic definition of aid terms. Make sure to read this page carefully. Woohoo! You made it through your Pitzer financial aid letter. But wait, what's this other letter? Your package will include 2 letters. The first, which we just went over, is designed by Pitzer. The second, which we'll cover right now, is a universal letter designed by the federal government to ensure that all colleges' financial aid letters look the same and can be compared apples to apples. You may notice some difference in font size or color, but the information provided within is the same. Let's go through this letter as well, just to make sure that everything's clear. Ready? At the top, we have another breakdown of the cost of attendance. This matches what we discussed earlier, so let's move right along. Remember how I told you that we use the FAFSA and the CSS profile, or the ISPA, to determine a family's EFC? The next section shows that breakdown. Does your EFC look different from college to college? Each school has a different way of assessing need. Some don't look at information provided in the CSS profile, whereas we do. And each school has different policies that impact how they calculate EFC. The way we assess your EFC also takes into account your student summer earnings contribution, or an expectation that you will earn money over the summer to help save for college expenses. These expenses can include your books and supplies for the fall semester, tuition, etc. To learn more about the summer earnings contribution, please go ahead and scan this QR code. You can use your phone camera to do so. Just hover over the code to follow the link. Snapchat will also work. Right below your EFC, we have a breakdown of the grant aid that you've received and where it's coming from. And again, here we have your net costs, aka what you may pay towards all college costs after grants and scholarships are deducted. You can get that cost down by accepting the work, study, and loan that is part of your package. Please note that this is different than the estimated payment section on your Pitzer financial aid letter, that letter we looked at right before this. Your estimated payment calculates what you may owe directly to the college, and your net costs include things like books and supplies, which are not charged directly to you. Finally, we have a breakdown of the options you have to keep these costs low. You have your loan options, all kinds of which are laid out here, and your work study options. You'll see that if you have the maximum work study, you're limited to 6 hours of work per week. That's how much you would be able to work to achieve an even distribution of your work study money across the whole school year. However, students are also welcome to apply for non-work study jobs to increase their earnings. For example, you could have 2 or 3 jobs on campus if you'd like to. Your work study amount will also increase every year. All right, so that's it with the letters. Let's wrap up with some FAQs. Can I cancel or not accept my loan? Yes, you can. Can my loan be replaced with a grant? Unfortunately, no. Pitzer's aid calculation includes a loan for all domestic students. Can I cancel my work study? Yes, but we encourage you not to. There's no harm in accepting your work study and not using it. If you decide later that you do want to work, it's best to have it available. What happens if I get an outside scholarship? Outside scholarships are incorporated into your aid package, and they will first reduce your student summer earnings contribution, followed by your loan, followed by your work study. Outside scholarships are good as they help keep your loan liability low. Will Pitzer match an offer I received from another school? Our aid offers are based on our individual review of your aid eligibility. This means we do not match offers from other schools. However, you are welcome to contact financial aid to discuss the details of your eligibility and available options. Can I appeal for more aid? Appeals are considered if there are financial circumstances you did not previously report. We encourage you to reference our appeal application, which you can find here on this QR code on the side of your screen. Can I get on a payment plan? Yes, you will be billed for the fall semester in August, but payment plans are available to stretch out your payments across the semester. So in summary, Pitzer meets 100% of need. The bulk of your need is met through grants and scholarships. Free money. The rest of a student's need is met with a small loan of no more than $3,500 and a work study of no more than $2,500. You are billed for your direct costs, but will also have indirect costs that you will need to budget for. Work study is earned through an on-campus job and not applied directly to your bill. Work study money is paid to you through a paycheck for time worked and is yours to spend as needed, though you may choose to use it to pay your bill. I hope this was helpful in understanding your financial aid letter. As always, if you have questions, please reach out. You can find our contact information below. Take care.